Welcome back to What Would You Ask podcast. My next guest is the founder and the namesake of Tonnies Minis. You remember that place, right? The bakery that down the, where was it, on the west side? I don't remember when it first.
It was actually, and it was the Inwood. It was
there you go.
northern Manhattan.
There you go.
Inwood. Yeah.
There you go. That's right. And then things were going good. And he said, you know what, though? The business can be leaner. It can be meaner. We want to do some expansion. Tonnie's always thinking big, right? And so what does he do? He reaches out to Marcus Lemonis and the Prophet and brings him in. He was part of the CNBC hit show, The Prophet. I'm not sure the season.
It's true.
I am excited. Was it?
I want to say season 3.
I was going to say 3 too. Yeah, I think that is right. You think we'd have that for, the guest that comes on? We'd have on there. But anyway, Tonnie Rozier, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to What Would You Ask podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what was going on. And we've all seen, and people, our viewers and our listeners are obviously fans of The Prophet. Matter of fact, the way our show works, Tonnie, is the fact that they dictate what series we go after, right? Our goal is to, we've been offered to do some of the other reality shows that aren't necessarily, you don't get life lessons or business principles out of, so we stay away from those. But, we have done a Shark Tank series. We've done a Survivor series. We've done even Big Break, the golf series. We've done Amazing Race, and now we're doing The Prophet. And the reason is we want to see what drives people, what motivates them and inspires them to succeed, reach a little farther, risk a little bit, and then what lessons come out of that. And so that content that we create, we want to be able to share with students in high school and colleges. And that's kind of our goal, is to get these things. I'm not really into going to like a dating show or something like that, where it's kind of mind numbing, and that would be a disaster. I wouldn't be good at it. I'm not knocking the show.
Gotcha.
It's just not my thing. So really what we want to find out from you is, we realized that there was some debt, there was expansion that we're looking at, a lot of different things going on. Tell us about what was happening with the business that made you reach out to the Prophet and Marcus specifically.
So the shortest version was, if New York City is filled with restaurants, I happen to have landed one of the largest accounts probably in New York City. We were averaging about 20,000 cupcakes a day, supplying a place called BBQ's in New York City, Alton restaurants. Initially, it seemed like a dream. I was the first dessert to land the account. Despite being told no, I was able to seize that account regardless. And what took place was, as we watched the show, I honestly did not run the numbers properly. The initial offer was for 50,000 cupcakes for the month of October. It turned into, I was given 2 weeks to roll it out. The 2 weeks turned into 2 days. Like they said, okay, give us 2 weeks, and we did it in 2 days. And then it turned into about 15 minimum to as high as 22,000 per day order.
Oh.
In the middle of that, I'm opening a store in Newark,
right,
Atlantic City. I had keys to the one in Inwood, the one in Harlem, as well as, of course, a bunch of things that I was juggling at the same time. So again, that is who I am. Or who I was. If you call me and say I got an opportunity, I'm looking to go.
Yep.
So when when my wife reached out to Marcus, unknown to me, it was because we realized that something was wrong. We had these big checks coming in, but it was never enough to kind of cut the chase I was after. I had someone look at numbers, and they said, Tonnie, you realize you're paying 18 cents more is what's missing out of that daily number per cupcake. So I had undercut myself from the beginning. Never mind, the initial contract was 50,000 just for a month, and it had gone on maybe 9 months. So in the middle of that, I'm pulling money from everywhere to try to keep it going, literally. All the stores, money all over the place. And then finally, my wife wrote a letter to Marcus. And the funny, when he reached out to me, I was like, no, not interested. Not. And that was the email. She didn't know I got the email. Then I think I got a call from someone, and I explained what was going on. And I said, listen, let's just do a Skype. You and your wife, your sister Tamika, the manager, and I was like, fine, let's do it. And there was the beginning of that interaction with the CNBC show.
Was that Skype with Marcus on it, or just the producers and the
So
staff?
from what I know now, Marcus wasn't on camera, but he was there.
Ah, okay.
Now, not understanding how that works, it was producers, myself, my sister, but now watching, yeah, he was there, just not on the camera.
And the story behind it is your wife invested a significant amount of money, right?
To say the least.
And that was her affecting your relationship, right? You're trying to scramble to do this business. Look, what business owner doesn't make mistakes every week? Never mind. You know what I mean? So like to say
Correct.
you made a mistake is like, that happens daily in a growing and building a business, especially one that you have so much success, and to pivot one way or the other is natural, right? To think about growth is natural. And,
Right.
unfortunately, things like overlooking a number here or there, a contract here or there, or something here or there, it happens to a lot of people. And what I do for a living now in doing these interviews, I hear that story over and over and over. So I just wanted to say that. So you reach out to Marcus, you have that meeting. How do they convince you, Tonnie, to give them the green light? Because obviously they're going to need your buy-in.
So the green light on the deal, or the green light on coming to the store?
Nope, coming into the store initially. We'll talk about the deal, but
it was my sister.
Okay.
Who kept saying, she calls me Trey, we could use the help. He can help us. Because even after I kind of agreed, I was on the fence about it, because I just, one, you're really putting all your energy into a time frame that you're not sure the outcome.
Right.
So that was one of my fears. And she kept saying, listen, you have nothing to lose. This is someone who knows business. He knows what he's doing. I'd done Cupcake Wars. I've been on TV a few times. So that part I wasn't that fazed by. There's always great press, no matter how it turns out, good or bad.
Yep.
But it was my sister, and then when my wife said, listen, when you look at the end of the day, we have nothing to lose. He can only help us. He can't hurt us.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm like, let's go.
So what we do during our show is we reach our members. We told the members you would be on the show. They send in questions and submit them. So I'm going to go to a couple of those and let you knock those out of the park. Alex from Marco Island, Florida wants to know, Tonnie, when was the first time that you actually met Marcus in person? Is it what we saw on the show? And what were your first impressions of him?
It was. I remember the day that, so how that took place was, they told me they would come in to do a walkthrough just to kind of see the place. With the camera, wanted to see me in action, and then Marcus walked through the door, literally.
That's smart, right? Because then there's a reason for the cameras to be there. They know you're going to be there because they're doing that. And then he walks in.
And he walked in. So my first thought was, it was probably like, oh, sugar honey iced tea. Marcus is walking in the door. and mentally, you don't know what to prepare for anyway, but I wasn't prepared mentally for it. I'm just thinking we're kind of going through the motions.
Right.
And then Marcus walks to the door.
Your first interactions, the first day with him, tell us a little bit about that. What were you guys, you seemed like you hit it off, but then you seemed like there was a lot of conflict along the way, to say the least, right? So
to say the least. So I'll start by saying that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Different person now. So when we first met, the rocky road that you guys saw was real. Primarily my inability to let go is the first error that I would say that took place. Marcus is someone who he knows what he's doing. In his mind, this is where we're going. The unfortunate thing is I have the same mindset, only on a smaller scale. Smaller scale meaning I have been doing it my way all these years. At that stage, probably 15 years. It had been working for me best of my ability up until recently when I took on those large accounts. So when the interaction between he and I, the bulk of the time was him kind of telling me what he thought was best without really hearing my end of what I was trying to do. Was frustrating for me, in addition to everything else going on around me at the time that, that just wasn't seen. So that was many people would say to me, "Oh my God, you don't listen, you were arrogant, you were this," and I probably was, because even I didn't watch. We actually did another episode in May, like a second look, and actually watched the episode alone for the first time prior to that. And I was, as I told Marcus, I apologized. I was actually embarrassed for the way I behaved, if that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the filming of it. We get a lot of questions. Wendy from Summit, New Jersey asks a lot about, was Marcus there every day during filming? Is it a lot of time, or is it like some of those celebrities who pop in, get the film done and get out? Is he really digging into your business, putting the time in?
So first, hi, Wendy. Summit is maybe 25 minutes from where I am, so hope to see you soon. So no, Marcus is there. We actually I don't think there was any days when we filmed without him. Okay. It's almost impossible. So no, he's knee deep in it.
Got it.
For sure.
Okay. For sure. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the negotiations. I think the early negotiation was, he basically said your wife owns the whole business, right? Effectively, when he looked at all the stuff, right? And then he gave the 100 for 20%. You were not happy with that at all. You were pushing for, I think, like 600 for 33% or something like that.
Correct. Correct.
I think though there's when you make valuations on businesses, we did, as I mentioned before, Tonnie, we've done a Shark Tank series, and valuation is everything on that show, right? People coming in, they got to know lifetime value. They need to know cost of acquisition, and they need to know valuation. Two real disciplined investors in Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary, they can't agree on what a valuation means. That just shows the difference. And I'm not making excuses for you saying 600 for 33, but there is a point of valuation that potential growth has to be factored in, especially early on. It's almost impossible for
not to do it,
right? So
yeah.
So I don't think that was just a pie in the sky. At the same time, Marcus quickly dismissed that, and I think he came back with 125 for 25% or something like that. Tell us a little bit about the inside. We get the edited version. How much time is that taking? Is that a long back and forth? Tell us a little bit about it.
So let's start with the big number.
Okay.
The big number of 600,000 was truly because of all the cards on the table. So when you watch the show, you see that one small store on Broadway. He highlighted everything that was incorrect, and it was all valid. Mm-hmm. But that location actually was supposed to be a boutique where you would go and do tastings for the product for all the events we were doing.
Got it.
It ended up being the last store that held keys for, which is how that came to be.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why that store. So that's number one. But even the 600,000 was because I knew I could go back to BBQs properly. I knew I was in the middle of a deal with Macy's that we were negotiating, and kind of past negotiation, I'm moving towards the lease. In addition to Atlantic City here, so I'm thinking, okay, if in addition to now, as great as I think I am, product-wise, someone who is now coming into my world who knows business 10 times me, we're gonna hit that 2, 3, 4, 10 million mark fast. So I'm thinking now, with that number, you're coming into a scenario where a name is already in existence. We're gonna take off. It's in my mind, like I think I said to Marcus, what's happening now is it's like I'm playing on 3-on-3, and I got Bird on one hand and Jordan on the other hand. Let's go. Doesn't matter who we're playing, we got it.
Yeah.
So that was part of that theory, so to speak, where I said, this is the number I wanted. So to answer your question, we were in New York City, and we were at the restaurant, and no, there wasn't any editing for that particular part. There is editing, yes. Yeah. I mean, there's about 500 hours of film.
Yeah.
But that particular day, that was pretty cut dry, right? I mean, I don't think there's any takes with that. But there wasn't a scenario where something had to be cut out of that scene. So that scene, that dinner episode was probably a total of 2 hours. And yeah, that was pretty raw, uncut, I think, when I remember.
Trey from Calabasas, California asks, Tony, was it hard to hear about all the things about a business that you built, hearing Marcus critique it? Was that difficult for you to handle?
At the time, yes. And I say at the time because, I was in a place where I had my mind set on one thing and Marcus had his mind set on something else. Like Marcus, so whatever he was feeding me was accurate, but it wasn't the direction I wanted to go into. So that's what made it complicated for me to hear anything he was saying, because everything I was telling him, he was like, no more stores until you get this right. Forget about Macy's until this, like, and he was correct. So that's what made it complicated for me. Even right on down to, again, the scene when he came into the store and said, hey guys, get what you want. Today's the last day of Tonnies Minis. And I remember scratching my head saying, A, we didn't discuss this, and we're partners. And B, this is not what I had in plan. So those little things constantly made it complicated for me to really sit down and listen to what he was saying, and to that in hindsight. So hindsight, everything he said was correct.
So how does something like that, because I watched the episode a bunch of times, but how does something like him making that proclamation of get your stuff because we're shutting down, right? Didn't he walk in when the cameras are getting ready to go and they're like, are we ready to go? Or the camera's just there all the time and he walks in and because it'd be like, does he say, hey, Tony, good morning and everything and have a cup of coffee and then they go, all right, we're ready. It's none of that. It's the cameras are there and he walks in and does his thing.
No. So the cameras are there constantly.
Yeah.
It's like a reality show.
Yeah.
They're on you all the time. You're mic'd up,
right,
13 hours a day.
Yep.
You forget the cameras is on you, as I had someone say, Tony, you're mic'd.
Yeah.
So you're holding conversations, whatever. And then, so no, he'll walk in, cameras already on scene because they're filming whatever I'm doing live, so to speak. And then he walks in. So no, there was no coffee time. There's no sidebar conversation. Cameras are rolling. And then that's the editing, I guess they do.
So when you guys finish and you're going to the end, take us through how this thing ends in your perspective. We saw what happens on the TV. Just tell us how it ends. I want your thoughts on that.
How the show ends, or
how the show ends with Marcus and he moves on.
I'm playing back. So no, when the show ended, it ended with he agreeing. It ended with me to deal with Sylvia's.
Mm-hmm.
He was happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended with him agreeing to taking a look at Newark, and saying, okay, if you believe this is something you can do, then I support you 100%, provided that you make sure that things are in order here first. He really wanted me to get rid of the lease, and I couldn't get out of the lease.
In Newark.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
And when I say couldn't, more wouldn't.
Yeah.
Would not get out of the lease. Yeah.
Well, how would you rate the experience? I mean, and I know you've look, we all mature as business owners, and you look back on it and say, I would have done something differently. I was maybe hot-headed, or I should have listened more, whatever that is. But how would you rate the whole experience? Was Marcus valuable to your business, do you believe?
If there's such a number as 1,000%, yeah. And I know you may not hear that often, because again, 5 years ago, if I'd have known what I know now, we would have had a much different relationship, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I think my business would have been 10 times where it was today. I did, in fact, during that time frame, I was attending Columbia. I've taken on other mentors. I've said no to countless opportunities, whereas prior to that, I would have been, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So during the short span of time that Marcus and I had conversations, no, he has an idea, and he knows it was my inability to kind of latch on to his idea because I was stubborn, because I had my own ideas, because I had my own vision, and it wasn't. It was opposite of his vision. Just small little details that made me realize that he may go and take off, but that's not what I had planned. And a
Got it.
simple thing was just basically he didn't want me to bake anymore. He wanted to remove me from the baking side. And that was for me, as many believe, that was a no-no for me. So I remained small, perhaps, in comparison to where I would have been if we'd gone with a co-packer, if you remember that part of the
Hmm.
show. But that's not what I wanted to do. That's not how I built the company.
Got it. Ashley from New Haven, Connecticut. She says, "Oh, on her way to move to Scottsdale, Arizona, but is in New Haven right now. She wants to know about your relationship with Marcus today, and does he still have ownership in your business?"
Um, the pause is only because the deal, as you know, was 25% for 125,000.
25.
Correct. Um, that still does not exist anymore. We have not severed ties legally. He does his deals on a handshake, and in the state of New York is the one state where there's no such thing.
Right.
So
Who knows?
it's a catch-22. I don't rule him out. We did speak at this point back in May. Very nice, very cordial. He had mentioned the fact that I matured so much in the 5 years since I've seen him. Have I reached out to him? I have not. If he reached out to me, would I take his calls? Absolutely, as I did when they called me for the other show. So there's no bad blood. We left on a very great / high note. But there's no answer to that question today. That's
Got
probably a lawyer's
Yeah, makes sense.
response.
Tell everybody what's going on. How has things evolved? What's going on with the cupcakes? Tell us a little bit about today.
Sure. So full speed ahead, 2000, that was 2015. Opened up here in Newark on Halsey Street. Since then, I've maintained the one store. And when I say maintained, I've probably grown tremendously. And I say that because I've been offered several locations back in New York City, and I refuse to. We're just beginning to take advantage of several opportunities, of which just signed a lease for another store 10 blocks away in Newark. We were going to kind of dibble and dab into other areas of food. We are signing a space. We're going into Newark Airport as well as LaGuardia Airport. We are also moving into the online business because of COVID more than ever. So my growth has been something that not as fast as I would like for it to be, but the beauty is that I'm in control of it. I'm actually slowing down the opportunities by saying, no, I pass. No, that's too far. No, I'm not interested, which for me is, even my wife would tell you, is just amazing.
Yeah.
She'll tell you better than I can. But for me to say no to an opportunity is good. And then there's no debt and zero debt.
How are you guys today? You good?
No, so again, the funny part is we were always good. It was more of her knowing that I needed help and I refused to listen to anybody, which is very frustrating for her.
Yeah.
So that was so we're great. We're great.
It seems like, like I said, there's always a maturation process in anything you do, right? You learn from time, you learn from people, you learn from all of that stuff. But it seems like you got your shit straight. I don't know how else to say it. It does. You see, you got a plan, you're executing on it. It sounds like you're together right now, right?
And I think the beauty of it all is I become a listener.
Yeah.
I'll listen more.
Yeah.
I have people in my circle who I can trust.
That's great.
Listen to outside of my wife, of course.
Yeah.
And I've got a great team at the store. I'm more hands-on than I was prior. I'm actually back in the kitchen making mixes. I think that was one of the reasons why I've also been able to control it. Before, I just had people who did everything for the store, and I just did more of running the operation, which is really how it should be.
Right.
But the past 3 years since Newark, I've truly been hands-on. I'm just beginning to let go of that side of the business, which has allowed me to fully understand what must be done and to do it properly.
Is it fun again for you?
It was never not fun for me. It was more of my inability to let go. Literally, it's
Yeah.
always fun for me. And honestly, if you're in any business, I don't care what it is, and it's work for you, and you don't love what you're doing, and on the 13th hour, you're not sure if you can go anymore the next day, you're probably in the wrong business.
Yeah.
Because every day for me is a 13, 14-hour day. In between, I'm jumping in and jumping out, but I love what I do and can't wait to the next day.
That's so good, man. Listen,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you
No,
being on the
thank you.
show.
Thank
It was
you.
awesome. A lot of business lessons, life lessons that you shared with us, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank
All right,
you.
man.
All
We'll be
right.
back with
Thank
more
you.
What Would You Ask podcast in a second.